everyone, welcome back to Flamboyant Creations. Diving into the deep end, our very first 100-seater. Day 1 and day 2 were all about preparation for the special Thanksgiving event. From planning to packing, every step felt big, exciting, but honestly a little scary too. We ended up leaving later in the afternoon once the rain finally stopped. The weather tested our patience, but we pushed through. This is us on the road and finally arriving in Northam at our client's plot. Seeing the space in person made everything feel so real. Funny enough, we forgot the mapped out blueprint, so we had to make a plan on the spot. A quick hand-drawn sketch to guide how the frame was going to be set up. Next up, the guys began unpacking the truck. Piece by piece, everything came out: poles, chairs, props, and tables. They then laid the poles on the ground to start forming the structure of the tent. This is how two poles are joined together to create a strong triangle shape. This is the foundation of the entire setup. Once all the poles were connected, that's when the real work began. The first section of the frame had to be joined together to start building the structure and keep it standing. This stage is crucial. Everything depends on getting the foundation right. At this point, the first section still looked unfinished. Once that section was secure, the team moved on to the next one, repeating the same process, piece by piece, slowly bringing the full structure together. Once all the poles were connected, that's when the next step began. The team had to lay down the artificial grass so we could put the top cover on without them getting dirty. Every small detail matters at this stage. To ensure stability, they used rope from the structure from one point to the floor and a pin on the floor so that the wind won't continue to shake the frame. So they did it on the right side and they also did it on the left side. This was a 9 by 12 meter frame tent and it required 2 top covers. Before the top covers could be dragged onto the frame, ropes had to be attached to them first. The covers come with small holes designed for securing them, and the ropes make it possible to pull them across smoothly and safely. The ropes are then thrown on top of the structure from one point to the next. So they had about 3 ropes that they had to throw over the structure before they started to pull the frame top onto the structure. Each cover had to be dragged carefully from one end of the frame to the other to create a proper covering. The second cover came next, and we followed the same method, attaching the ropes and pulling it across to the opposite side until the frame was fully covered. Once both top covers were on the frame, the guys tied them together in the middle, securing everything in place. As we worked, time was ticking and it was starting to get darker. I was honestly worried about whether we would have enough light to finish the structure. It was nerve-wracking. But then we noticed a huge street light right above us. That moment brought relief and put us at ease. The next step was to close off the top triangle corners using one flap on each side. The guys had to tie ropes through the holes in both the top cover and the flap. This method helped secure the covering tightly, locking everything together. At this point, the structure now had a proper roof and side coverage, protecting it from the wind. Day 1 of setting up the event. We're still at the venue and the time is 8 p.m. of the 10. This is what it looks like. We're on deck. Lifting this structure was no joke. We needed every bit of manpower we could get to get the legs into each corner of the structure. The guys quickly developed a system. One team would lift while the other supported. Then a 3-step ladder was placed to help hold everything steady. As one team pulled up one side, the other team moved to the next pole to help lift. Once the frame was up, the leg pole was installed to make the structure stand. Watching the team repeat this process, moving from one point to the next, then onto the other side, was intense and impressive at the same time. For the poles that needed leg poles installed, it took about 5 men to lift. The team supporting the structure needed another 3 or 4 people to keep everything stable. Step by step, the structure began to stand on its own. And then the other guy earlier went and put the pin onto the floor so that while the structure is being moved, it will be secured onto the floor. This part is powerful. You can really feel the teamwork and pressure. This was the structure fully standing. All that was left was to secure it with the bottom poles, which help align and straighten the tent. Once that was done, we moved on to putting up the window section of the tent. The side walls. This step was important to make sure that overnight the wind wouldn't disturb the structure. This was me at 9:30, sitting back and watching everything slowly coming together. The team was hooking the side covers like curtains all around the tent. Once that was finally done, we were finished. It was tiring, it was challenging, but we had to call it a day. We got home in Rustenburg at 1 a.m. only to wake up again at 5 a.m. Day 2, we're busy, we're driving, going to where others are so we can go back to the venue. Day 2 is draping and flooring, so come join us. We arrived at the venue early in the morning with Thabo, the draping specialist. He went straight into setting up, fixing ropes all around the tent. Once all the sides were done, he ran the rope from one end of the tent to the other, right through the middle of the frame. After that, he used a ladder to tie the ropes from corner to corner while the rest of the team was holding the ladder for him. Safety first, teamwork really does make the dream work. Thabo then moved on to sorting out the draping material. He separated them by size, those meant for the roof and those for the sides. Getting this part right was important because each section needed the correct measurements to ensure a clean, balanced finish. With everything now organized, the next phase of transforming the tent could begin. Now you get to see the reason behind having the rope running across the middle. Thabo took all the draping material he needed and hung them evenly along the rope from one side of the tent to the other. He then began separating them because I had chosen the spiral draping method. This was done to give guests some shade, since the frame tint is a clear span tint, meaning the sun does come through. Step by step, the tent started to feel less like a structure and more like a space being transformed. Trade secret I'm sharing. This was also my first time seeing how you can place your pins on your wristband. That way, when you start pinning your drapes, you don't have to keep going up and down the ladder to fetch pins. It saves time, energy, and keeps the workflow smooth. Sometimes it's the small tricks like these that make a bigger difference on a long setup day. See how fast and effortless it looks? As he was making the folds, he would simply take a pin from his wrist and just like that move on to the next slab. After lining the material along the side row, he then made gathers at the bottom. Those gathers were tied tightly, creating a beautiful shaded curtain effect along the sides. Clean, quick, and efficient. With each section secured, the tent continued to transform into a warm, welcoming space for the guests. Once he was done with the right side, he moved to the left side. Here you can see why the material needed to be long enough. As he worked, he adjusted it while pinning and making sure everything was pulled tightly and secured in place. This time around, I didn't help with the draping. I didn't want to slow down his pace because his attention to detail was truly precise. The same process and methods were used on the other side as well. As the morning went on, I was handed a cup of coffee and some cookies while I continued to monitor the progress of the draping. Once all the sides were fully draped, he moved on to the focal point, the area where the guest of honor would be seated. This was where the backdrop stands and the double couch would be placed right at the center. And instructed him that I wanted that entire area fully covered with drapes. That space needed to stand out, and he made sure it did. The moment we had all been waiting for had finally begun, the installation of the chandeliers. We had one rustic chandelier paired with two black chandelier lights, and they blended beautifully with the overall setup.
You can say it to yourself. Come say it. Come say it. Come say it. You already said it. It's recorded. Manpower.
Another trick to keep in your deco hat is to always have cable ties on hand. Once the chandelier was tied in place, he made sure to secure it even further by tying and tightening the grip with the cable ties. Strong, neat, and safe, exactly how it should be. Then we moved back to the focal point where the bottom section had to be pinned in alignment with the gathers and folds he had created at the top. Take a look at how neat and precise it was. Once that was done, he began adding the black drapes. They were used to highlight the beige draping and to place emphasis on the chandeliers. That contrast is what brought the whole look together. One of the final parts of draping is covering the ropes. He covered the rope running through the middle with beige material from one end of the tent to the other. This helped soften the structure and complete the look. He then went on to cover the ropes around the sides of the tent as well, using the same material. That detail added a beautiful clean finish. Just look at how beautiful it turned out. Once the draping was done, the team jumped straight into laying out the white flooring. They had to spread them out carefully Then join each piece together using white tape, making sure everything lined up properly. This process took longer than I had anticipated. The supervisor from the company I outsourced the frame tent from was nowhere to be found, and the guys were a bit unsure of the process. Eventually, the guys figured it out and they tried to align and straighten everything. Quick story time. This part turned into a bit of a dramatic experience. The supervisor later showed up heavily intoxicated, and keep in mind, he was the one who had driven us to Northam from Rustenburg, which is about 1 hour 20 minutes to 1 hour 30 minutes from Rustenburg. For safety reasons, I had to take over the wheel on the way back. He wasn't happy about it.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Guys, can you imagine? And that's part of the reality behind the scenes. Not everything goes according to plan. If you've enjoyed this journey so far, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on the final outcome. Trust me, you'd want to see how it all came out.